Is this on the agenda? Have you seen? I
I
think
haven't looked, but I think it is.
Yeah.
I would think it is. Everything's been approved up to this point. I mean, this is what I mean. You go through all these boards and nobody looks. Talking Racine is the ones that figures it out. I mean, really?
Yeah.
All right.
I just feel the weight of responsibility on. Well, good morning. Welcome back to Talking Racine. Mr. George Myers to my left.
Morning.
Mr. Jim Spodek to my right. I'm Dr. Ken Jorgen. Supervisor candidate Ken Lumpkin is not with us. He's probably doing some campaign work, I hope. Anyway, we've got
knocking on doors.
knocking on doors or making phone calls. You know, it's a little bit cold out there these days. We got a couple things we're going to talk about here this morning. The first one is the development over on Clark Street, which was recently discussed down at a city council meeting, where a private developer has come in and wants to buy the buildings over there in Clark Street for, what was it, $10,000 total?
No, $500.
$500.
$500.
Okay, we've got $10,000 in them.
City bought them for $10,000.
Well, I think we bought them for $5,000, and we got $5,000 more into whatever.
Right.
So that's I mean, for $500, I mean, if the guy's going to do something, it's great.
Yeah. They want to tear down the buildings that are over
Now,
there.
these are under city ownership right now. So
RDA.
Right now, yeah.
RDA ownership.
Yeah, RDO.
No, not city.
So there's zero
That's true.
property
That's
taxes
true.
on it.
Yeah. So anyway, they want to build 112 units of housing at a cost of about $18 million.
Right.
So it's
By the way,
pretty good
it's
size
got a
project.
beautiful drawing.
Yeah, beautiful drawing. And I
Whoever
noticed
drew that drawing really made it look nice.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
noticed
think it
that
possibly looked that good.
both sides of the street look real nice, and
then
only
the
one
trees, the
side.
trees are full grown and everything.
Oh yeah. Well, they bring those in and plant them already.
It's called marketing. It's called marketing.
They started that down at Disneyland, you know, and it's just spread throughout the country. You can buy grown-up trees and put them wherever you want them.
There you go.
We should maybe start a business of growing trees.
Yeah.
You got a little property here, don't you?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, you break it down. $18 million. You take 112 apartments. It breaks down to $161,000
Per unit.
per unit, and that would be 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. If the guy can make it, I mean, I get all the power to him. The only thing is, you know, one of the things when I did dig up the Redevelopment Authority minutes, and they talked in the minutes about this project. And they said, you know, he's got 15 years, nonprofit. He's, you know, a very credible company. The largest WIDA borrower for the nonprofit borrower in the state, obviously. And there will be income. I think there's going to be income qualifying units, including market rent apartments. So it's basically a low income project. You know,
Yeah. Well, one of the
veterans.
target is veterans is one
Right.
of the targets for.
Well,
residency.
$161,000. That is an apartment unit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a halfway decent house.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's.
I mean,
it's,
Yeah.
I manage property. I manage some of the older property, and you know what it costs to live in a house that's even assessed at $40,000-$50,000 is a pretty good size rent. Now you triple that. I don't know where the low income is coming
well,
from, because you're talking about rents that are going to be somewhere around at least at least $1,000.
oh yeah. It's there's totally.
Well,
A
maybe
month,
they're,
closer to $1,500 a month.
they
Yeah,
might be banking on Foxconn employees
they're all going to be rich.
residing.
that's right.
Right? Well,
They're all
yes,
gonna make
some
tons
of them
of
will
money.
make good money. You know, if this thing ever gets off the ground.
The average.
Yeah. Well, they're going to demolish the two
whatever.
on Clark Street, and there's a tavern at that far end on 16th. They're going to keep that, turn that into a community center. Apparently, they've got a contract on that project now, or on that building now. Here's the thing that when I read the newspaper article, and it sounded like, you know, this guy's just going to unload a barrel of money, and he's going to build these new apartments, and it sounds great, and there's going to be no money involved. And then if you go to the minutes, when you read the minutes, it says, and he talks, Connolly, the head of city development, talks to the RDA board and says, it's consistent with prior approvals provided to Herman and Kittle in 2016. Now, there were two other developers that looked at this parcel
Right.
and decided against it for whatever reasons. It's up against the railroad tracks. They were going to use historic tax credits, which would have restored the buildings, which apparently the buildings are too far gone. And I've been there, and they're rough. But all in all, back to the consistency of Herman and Kittle. Well, now, what I've got a problem with, you come to this board who is supposed to know all. If you've got a company and you're going to the board asking for money or approval on something, they should have all the information. I mean, to say it's consistent with the approvals, that's fine. But nobody gave the approvals. What are those approvals? Now, not that there's some horrendous secret here, but it was...
it would be good if they discussed it from a point of knowledge rather
Right.
than expecting people to remember something
This
from
is
a
what
couple
I've
of
got
years
a
ago,
problem
which
with
they
these
don't.
boards. Right.
Yeah, you know, it referred to a deal that nobody knows about.
Right.
Well, this is consistent with the deal we had 10 years ago.
Right.
So what does
Sounds
that mean?
good.
Was that a good
Yeah,
deal?
That sounds. I vote for that. I mean, I just don't see.
Yeah.
You know, this is the thing that bothers me about these boards. They put these people on these boards. They don't investigate it. I mean, first thing I would ask is, can I see that? Can I see that resolution, or can I see it? Now, what the city is going to do in that, and I went back and looked at the $655,000 they're going to, which was lapse in the article. They're going to borrow $655,000 for contamination or cleanup, which then they would pay it back through.
Well, does that include demolition too, or is that just remediation?
It didn't bring demolition in. They don't really know the amount. They talked about $600,000 for demolition, but it's the fact is, again, none of the information is given to that board, or at least properly, I feel, and to get a good discussion on it, to find out exactly what we're doing. I think it's a great deal. If the guy comes in and he can put the money in without having the city put a lot of money into it, go for it, you know. And I think it's a great
So
opportunity.
that's your traditional developer.
Yeah.
He comes in, buys some property. I mean, you can't do anything with it. You're getting it for $10 or whatever it is, $500.
$500.
And part of that is you're going to have to do some demolition on it, maybe.
Right.
Well, so it is more of an investment, and that's typically what you go in for, an $18 million investment. You got a small percentage of it, which is $600,000, but it's like 3%. But it's a small percentage, so it's a lot of money. But that's part of your investment in getting this property and building it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it represents a little bit more that you'll have to pay back.
Yeah.
Well, it's just more of an
It's a
investment.
risk. I mean,
That's part of that.
But it'll probably come back in taxes, I would imagine, on the property, rather than any kind of loan. We don't know if he's got $18 million in his pocket that he's going to invest,
No,
or if
there's
he's
gonna
getting
be
financing somewhere.
Typically, yeah, investors don't have it in
financing.
the pocket, but the bank looks at the investment and says, is this a good investment? The bank gets involved with it too and looks at it and says, show me how you're going to be able to pay this loan off, this $18 million, because they have to be self-supporting each project. You don't take money out of this account because you got $10 million sitting over there. No, the project itself has to survive too. And that's what the banks check out,
Right.
which unfortunately, when it comes to city funding, that doesn't get checked out.
No.
It's never challenged. It's never looked at.
Here-
It's just looked at as, it's just taxpayers' money. Don't worry about it. That's just, just spend it.
Here's where I'm going with
If
this.
the chairman of the committee recommends it, the committee usually goes, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Well, here's why I'm bringing this up. Machinery Row. If they would have done their investigation on Machinery Row, they would have found that there was misappropriation of funds, there was a straw man, there was multitude of problems with that, and it cost the citizens millions of dollars.
So far.
Well,
far.
yeah, and
If they had done their homework.
beside the fraudulent stuff, you're bringing up the fraudulent stuff. How about the actual project itself? Was that going to pay for itself? Was the $65 million that
Right.
Rodney Blackwell was talking about spending, was that going to actually be funded by the tenants there, by the people living there, and by the shops that were going to be there? And that's what banks look at, but taxpayers never do, because we can't see it, and our representatives don't do it either. And that's what happened to Machinery Road. That's what was going to go on with the arena. And it just, that's how the
whole laundry list
whole
of
$1 million,
projects.
all the $1 million of the IG fund, the intergovernmental fund, has been blown, is because we consistently
How much did
spend
you
money.
say? Did you say $1 million?
No, $25 million.
Oh, okay.
It's something like $25 million over 15 years.
Yeah.
Closer to the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just $2 million a year that, for 15 years, it's close to 25, 30 million.
I mean,
gone. It's
right.
just gone. And we haven't stopped the exodus of people from the city. We haven't stopped being the worst unemployment rate in the state. We haven't ceased being the fourth worst community for black people. It hadn't changed the darn thing.
No, it's actually, we've gotten worse. We spent money squandered, and I want to use this word squandered because that's no other way
Yeah,
to put
but
it.
Jim, think how bad it would be if we hadn't spent that money. we probably would have sunk right into the ground.
I can't go there. I can't go there.
It's like I was talking to a
We'd be
friend of mine.
swimming on the shore. The city would have fallen off into the
No,
lake.
I got to tell you the story. I was talking to a friend of mine. He offered me a cup of coffee. I said, I don't drink that stuff. He says, hey, pal, my mother drank a pot of coffee every day, and she lived to be 85. I said, well, imagine how old she would have gotten if she hadn't drank all that coffee.
Right.
You know. So imagine what we would be like if we hadn't spent
But I hope the guy
millions
does
of
well.
dollars.
I hope Cardinal Capital does the project, and I hope he's very successful with it, because we don't throw cold water on every project that comes along. We just want to make sure that those projects are legitimate when they come in, because a lot of people come in here and they peel out these dollars and these boards. I mean, maybe they have good intentions, but they do not do their homework. You're not sitting on that board just to say hey and glad hand with everybody. You're there for a purpose, and that purpose. And I look at these, and I just don't understand. And there's some fairly intelligent people on these boards. And when I read this, well, then give me the Herman and Kittle property resolution. I want to see what
That's what raised your hackles. They brought up all this evidence, but what kind of evidence was it?
Right.
It didn't show anything. Didn't prove
nobody
anything,
asked questions.
Didn't reveal anything. It was a name.
Right.
It's like name dropping.
Exactly.
Oh, I know.
Oh, it was so good. They're good people.
Nothing to see here. Move along. Everything's fine. And meanwhile, there's blood in the streets. So anyway, good luck with the Clark Street project. That's
if it could come out looking like that picture that they showed,
that ain't going to happen. But it could look good, and it could be a useful addition to the community. I got a question for you guys. If I wanted to start a business, and I came to you and I said I need $175,000, would you be inclined to lend me the money?
Well, I'd like to know how you're going to use it and what your plan is.
Oh, well, I'm going to create a few jobs. I'm going to start my own business, and actually, I need more than 175. I need more, like closer to $500,000. But if I can get the money from you, I can borrow more money from somebody else, and that'll cover the difference.
Now, I really want to know the plan.
You really want to know? The plan.
Yeah. Well, how
well, it's a brewery. Does that help?
It's even worse.
Well,
now it's like,
okay. Let's change the parameters a little bit. It's not your money; it's somebody else's. How about that? Will you lend me the money then?
Yeah, it's just his money, and I'm giving it to you, and he doesn't care. It's yours.
Yeah, okay,
go for it.
I think that's kind of what's going on with this brewery. $175,000 from the city.
RDA. Let's
I did.
And it's actually,
we shouldn't confuse you with that. The RDA
we should probably get into.
Entity.
The redevelopment authority, it means it's coming from the intergovernmental fund thing? No, it's not from
Not this time.
Okay, just
CDBG.
Oh, CDBG funds.
Community Development Block Grants, which is federal money that comes down to local communities to improve the local communities, to fight blight, to help with low-income jobs. Just creating a better
help people that have no other way to go. I think that was one of the requirements.
Right.
It's kind of a medium of last resort. You just can't get. I can't figure out how I'm going to do this. Could I get $5,000 or $10,000?
A lot of it was community based. It came from the federal government, but it would be for a community center that needed a new scoreboard, and they needed $10,000. So they would make application to the CDBG funding, and then they would have like I don't want to call it a
kind of a committee that sits.
Yeah, there's a committee, and then they kind of, which one seems to be really needed this year. And I mean, there's a lot of different funding they did over the years. I thought it always was, kind of an interesting way to go, and a lot of it was community based. It was really 1974. Ford actually put it in.
Wow, Gerald Ford did it?
Gerald Ford. He was short time. He
wasn't
wasn't falling down.
I didn't think that he had done anything, but that's good.
No, he put it in. And it was for blight elimination. It was for doing things. It was mostly for residential areas, for blight elimination, and for things that otherwise the city didn't have the extra money for, or there was community groups that were working in a certain area.
But it was supposed to be citizen oriented.
Correct.
It wasn't. This wasn't just another top down thing where you hand out money to your campaign supporters.
Well, they specify that it works better when citizens are involved.
Right. Yeah. And it even gives instructions to citizens for a website they can go to if they want to see what kind of activities the CDBG funds are good for.
Yeah.
You go there, but then in order to apply for it, you still have to go through your local government.
Right.
But at least they're really encouraging. That was the plan for citizen involvement. Not like we are now when money gets spent. It gets spent in a committee someplace, right?
Yeah.
And we never are informed about it or anything like
right,
that.
exactly.
This was supposed to be a more grassroots type of thing, even though it's coming from way up there, the federal government, but it was supposed to be a more grassroots type of thing, the individually involved.
Yeah, it would be local people that would be making decisions on how the money would be spent locally under guidelines provided by the federal government. Now, we've got a community development committee here in town, which oversees the dispensation of these funds, or the disbursement of these funds. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 members of the committee are alderpersons. 1 member is the mayor, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 citizen members. One of whom is, at least one of whom I know is a tavern owner here in town. So.
But here's a little something that has changed. The CDBG monies early on were actually dispensed by a committee, and they would come in and make their pitch. Really, they would make a pitch for that money.
Yeah.
Each community group. You were at some of those.
I remember. I went to one of those meetings. I just went to one. I just wanted to know more about it, and it was held where the common council meetings are, and the place was filled with people, and everybody, a lot of people, were getting up there, just about everyone, and making a pitch for the 4 or 5,000 they want, maybe 10,000. They needed some money, and these were all very small community-based operations. You know, it was not somebody coming in with $175,000. I didn't think anything close to that because they wanted to start a brewery or something like that. You know,
Right.
they were smaller things, and they seemed to be more with nonprofit groups that were trying to get books out. You know,
Right.
or they're trying to.
They needed a
straighten
printer.
out-
They needed a printer for their office. You know, they would bust it. So they, it was definitely
Yeah.
very community based.
So how does it work now? I mean, is it...
Well, since our last mayor, John, who was visited us last week, he got involved with it. That
John
Dickert. If we could get him back, I'd like to see him, but probably not coming back for a while.
Nah, we don't want to wake them up.
Yeah.
He moved that CDBG monies into the city development, and really overseen by the RDA now. Now he took it away from the citizens, moved it into the redevelopment authority, really.
Which is really a
Puts it
private
back into a
organization.
committee, doesn't it?
Actually to a committee.
And yet they don't
Now
have
it's
to-
controlled by something else. You don't have this pitching for the money. You don't have this going into the community any longer. How they disperse that, it's really very questionable. If you remember, I believe now, and I don't know this for a fact, but I do remember when the kids would come to the Racine and they would paint houses for persons that were less fortunate, and they would set these houses.
I think some of that was CDBG money.
Yeah,
too,
well, it
wasn't
was definitely, yeah. And they would borrow the
things
money
like that.
because these kids would have to, get lodging. You have to feed them. I mean, they're doing this for free, and it
They
was
do
a good,
a nice job, too.
Yeah,
I
and
saw some
you were
work.
paying bare. I mean, you
Yeah.
weren't paying them wages or anything. You were just kind
I
of giving them a
borrowed
place.
ladders. I gave them ladders. They needed a ton of ladders.
A lot of
They
people
paid
were
pay 'em for
involved.
lunch.
A lot of
That
people.
type of stuff.
Exactly. Well, just recently, they apply for money. They need $10,000 roughly to feed these kids and keep them for the week. There was no money. They couldn't get the money because it wasn't there anymore.
All of the
So they had to make a special meeting so these kids could get this funding. I mean, it is just it's totally gotten.
Well, you can see the
Kenny
difference once it got into that committee. I mean, the thing that I observed was it was direct from the managers of the fund. That's this group here. Those people that you listed there. Those aldermen and private individuals. Directly in contact with the individuals that were applying for it.
Right.
Once it gets into a committee like that, or a subcommittee, now it's really hard to. I mean, you try and go to talk to one of those places, and some aldermen have trouble getting the opportunity to speak at a committee meeting, let alone a private individual. And it just seems to me it shuts it off now. Maybe they're still having these big meetings at the Common Council. You didn't know anything about it?
Well, one of my concerns would be that the RDA has an entirely different mission from the Community Development Block Grant money. And I suspect, and I'm concerned, that the tendency might be to spend money in the fashion and for the same purposes as the RDA does, even though it's CDBG money, which is intended to be spent differently.
That's right, and I notice in the requirements it says that those type of things that the RDA does are legitimate. You can still use things for improved roads and stuff like that. But those projects, when you get into roads and infrastructure, man, you can soak up $1 million so fast,
No
you know, and
right.
just nothing left.
But it also
for these
brought
little
together a
5,000,
community.
10,000
I always felt it brought together a community. You know, it's like we need trees, we need lights in this area, whatever. I mean, it brought a community together. People kind of worked together with it. Now this governmental, we're going to control this.
Yeah, and I think that was the idea of it, to help bring people.
Absolutely.
It said it works better when individuals are involved.
Citizens are involved. I got a question. Now, usually with these federal programs, there are going to be things that are specifically prohibited for expenditure.
That's very
They say that, you can use it for this, and this.
Well,
Can't use it for that.
I agree, but I want to just, before you jump into what it can and can't be used for, one of the areas that I think is important to mention is that Dickert brought this in as a job creator into the RDA because he felt as though if we started businesses, that we could start some, put low-income people to work in businesses that were started by these CDBG monies. So that was, I think, the thought process. That's how it was sold. We're going to take it away from those community base, and we're going to create jobs because he was a developer, like he did on Machinery Row.
the problem,
And the Porter Project and Delta Hawk.
How far you want to go?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Got a lot of jobs out
That
of
could
those
be
efforts.
totally legitimate, but it also can be start to be abused by then. In other words, this guy's a campaign contributor. We'll make sure he gets the money, and that's the type of thing that happens when it gets up at that level, or if you keep it down low level. And that's probably somebody knew that, and that's why they put it in here. It works better when it's done by local citizens because it's harder to do that out on a floor, and particularly only dealing with $5,000-$10,000 a piece. There's not much room left in there for campaign contributions.
Well, and a group of predominantly citizens are not going to be prone to spending like big chunks of money.
No.
They're going to look at these
These are
small
all
individual
small,
projects.
really, grassroots street.
They're going to be more
based,
comfortable
on
with
the
that
street
level
based,
of financing, for
Yeah.
one thing. So now we've got a situation where it's, again, totally just about under government control.
Right.
And we see
That's
how
right.
we see how that's gone.
This is not coming down at a bid meeting of a whole bunch of regular people. This is more done through the committee process, isn't
Correct.
it?
Correct.
Yes.
So now, can we move on to the
Let's move on.
onto the subject of things that are prohibited from spending money on? And among them would be, well, I see you found this online, right?
Yeah, this is the
This is the
our
allowable
investigative.
costs. Allowable costs. 2 CFR. What, part 200. What is? Do you know what that is?
2 CFR. That's Code of Federal Regulations.
Part
Normally it
200
doesn't look like that.
identifies allowable and unallowable costs. Some costs are never allowed.
Listen to this now, folks.
Examples of unallowable costs. Entertainment. I guess you can't have a movie house or, I don't know,
I suppose, yeah.
Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know. Alcohol. Alcohol is never allowed. Bad debts.
You can't borrow. Yeah, you can't
Can't
borrow
do.
just to pay off your debt. No,
Can't do that to
can't use it for
Yeah,
that. By the
that's
way,
right.
this comes from Community Planner Center of is that the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Yeah.
So this is what we're reading from is right from the government, right where this money comes from. And in the Code of Federal Regulations, part of the law that set this money up to operate as it was supposed to said there's certain things you can't use it for.
And it's
What?
understandable. You can't open
Yeah.
a bar, a dance hall. I mean, I don't see that. as
Entertainment is not a real necessary part of,
Right.
of a government.
Urban blight.
Survival of,
Right.
urban blight.
You
yeah,
talk
that
about
type of stuff,
health
yeah.
violations that can be
And
used for.
bad debts is just, that's a
Well,
bad
speaking
debt.
of bad debts, I was asking you guys earlier if you would lend me money, and you seemed kind of hesitant until it became somebody else's money, and then you were willing to lend me the money. Would you be at all reticent about lending me somebody else's money if I had $90,000 in debts for, I don't know, unpaid property taxes?
See, so there gets to be a real problem, isn't it? Yeah, where I've got some bad debts I need handled here. Can I get some money to handle that? I mean, it seems pretty obvious that would not be something that this type of money would be used for. So anyway, alcohol and this $175,000 was to set up a brewery. Is that the problem?
Yeah, and
and it looks like that's purely not allowed.
I don't have anything against the idea of a brewery or the people that are doing it, but again, we're spending money in ways that we're not really supposed to.
Well, and it shows how this operating just blind to giving information to the people, like we talked earlier about this earlier project we're modeling it after, and just ignoring what the law says.
Well, here let's go one step back again. Now, if that information came to the RDA, and with this now these are CDBG funds. This is the urban blight money and all the rest. Now it came to the RDA. And they made their pitch that we're going to borrow $175,000 to start this brewery in the community here, and we're going to use these allocated CDBG funds for it. 6-0. Oh, we love it. It's a great idea.
Nobody even looked, did they?
Nobody looked at anything.
They never should have approved this. Now we've got people that are good people that have become dependent upon this.
Right.
I mean, they are fully expecting this to happen.
Absolutely. It passed. They got through the planning commission. They got white box grants. I mean, everything's passed. It's going to the common council. But there's $90,000 worth of taxes.
Is Alderman McCarthy on that list?
And not to mention, it's not allowable under the
Alderman Terry McCarthy's on that list.
He's on community block. He's on community for the CDBG. But they should.
That's where the $175,000.
Well, it actually went to the RDA meeting. It went to the RDA meeting to get approval.
Right. Is it CDBG funds though that are being used for the $175,000?
Yes.
All right. Now here's the thing about Alderman McCarthy. He was the one that instituted the limitation on Class A liquor licenses 10 years ago.
Right.
So he's watching all this stuff here, yet he's illegally using federal funds to start up a brewery. Now, Alderman McCarthy, maybe you should get both sides of your body or together. Let the left hand know what the right hand's doing.
I can't totally object to the board, not getting the information. I mean, they didn't get the information. Sometimes they just can't make that decision because they don't have the information. But again, why hasn't that information been brought to the board? I mean, how do you miss this? Now, you're telling me they went through for the SBA, they got an SBA loan, that they didn't see this? Something seems wrong.
Well, somebody's trusting somebody to do some investigation and to do some work and
really
make sure that
I always say
the last word is Amy Conley, and you know it. Just don't question Amy, and you'll do fine.
And this is it.
I mean, know how that goes.
Taxes have been unpaid on some of these from 2006.
Well, and another thing that was specified was that there was going to be $55,000 of personal money and facade and white box grants. $55,000. Well, we know that facade grants, and there's probably going to be 2 of them because there's 2 buildings.
Right.
And we know of one location downtown that got 2 grants on one building because it was fronted on 2 streets. Right. So that's $20,000 and $20,000. That's $40,000. That leaves $15,000 left out of that $55,000 of personal funds and facade white box grants. White box grants are separate from facade grants.
So there's another 20 involved in there. You can get up to 28,000.
So where the heck are the personal funds? I don't.
That's probably very little, if there's any. I mean, I guess the real thing comes down to why wasn't this vetted correctly?
If you're going to be lending money, you should think like a lender.
Right. I mean, do you really believe that anybody that is in debt and another thing too, that SBA loan is paying off a $26,000 credit card, and I've seen that there's a $26,000 credit card that's being paid off by the SBA, the Women's SBA. That's that revolving fund that they use. I've seen that before. When you borrow, somebody wants to reduce your debt. We got to get your debt down because of the bank. The bank is thinking, hey, you've got to have enough income to make our payment and enough money to operate. And I've seen that where loans have been made and debt has been retired because they just borrow a little more.
But that's all part of the investigation into the project, and that's what we said earlier on.
And it should be discussed by the board.
Yeah, if you were borrowing from a bank or a legitimate, the bank would be interested in what's the specifics of the project. Is it going to pay for itself? When you get a project like this, we get grants for the outside, grants for the inside, more grants just to build the machinery,
equipment.
And it's like nobody's saying and really digging in and saying, is this going to succeed? And particularly when we just had a microbrewery go out of business, and is there really going to be that type of market for it? Those are all things that somebody that's really got a vested interest checks out.
And where is the business
and
plan?
because it's taxpayer money, nobody cares. It just, just spend it.
And I mean, I don't know.
I would want a local business like this to succeed.
That sounds like a fun project. I
But-
think it's neat.
Boy, I tell you, that's pretty shaky ground. And then to be throwing
I think, to be honest with you,
tax dollars
to
at
put
it.
these folks in that position, I think for their own gain as a city development, because they want a win. Somehow we got to have something. And I feel these folks were used, and I don't think this was properly vetted from the beginning. There's no way a bank would look at this project, and I understand it's money that a bank won't look at, but even to some point you got to say, this isn't a good deal. And I actually feel kind of bad about this.
I do too.
I want something to happen.
Yes,
And-
we all
but-
like to see something happen, but it's got to be something that's legitimate.
Yeah.
And I'd like something good to happen to fellow citizens, but I don't think this is a good road to
Well,
something
particularly
good
when
happening.
part of it is
Yeah.
quasi illegal. I'm not going to say it's illegal, but it's not allowed.
No one knew this?
to that type of thing.
And what happens if the HUD or the CBDG money is investigated and they find out that it was used for something that's outside the guidelines? We're
That'd be
liable to be
interesting,
sanctioned where they're just going to say, look, you guys don't know how to use these funds. We're going to put a moratorium on giving you any money, or we're going to have to make sure that you do everything according to the guidelines, or you're not going to get any. It's just...
That's a possibility. Don't know how.
Well,
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see if this loan is approved. I mean, it's just got to go to the Common Council now, so we'll see what the Common Council will do. I mean, I don't know, do they even have this information?
Their meeting, is it tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Is this on the agenda? Have you seen? I
I
think it
haven't
is.
looked, but I think it is.
Yeah.
I would think it is. Everything's been approved up to this point. I mean, this is what I mean. You go through all these boards and nobody looks. Talking Racine is the ones that figures it out. I mean, really?
Yeah.
All right.
I just feel the weight of responsibility on my shoulders. I'm glad that you're bearing the weight as the investigative reporter.
I feel kind of bad.
Well, now
But anyway.
next week we're going to discuss the intergovernmental fund again, and some specific requests for money that have been made to come out of the intergovernmental fund.
Right.
So hang on to your hats.
How much is the money?
$900,000.
$900,000. It's only $1 million, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they treat that intergovernmental fund like it's a bottomless pit of money.
Sometimes it looks worse. Sometimes they get concerned because there's too much in there and figure out a way to spend it. That's what Machinery Row was. They had $5, $6 million in there.
Right.
What the
I don't
hell
know how there
what
can
are we
be-
doing with $6 million in the
Yeah,
bank
we can't
anyway?
have that. We have to put that money to work.
Yeah.
Work.
I don't know how
you
there can
blew
be
that.
any in there. I really don't. The way they, I mean, it's,
Well, it's a government, man. It just keeps trickling in. I'll tell you, if I had
Nobody was paying attention to it was the problem, and it accumulated there, and they finally figured
I'm gonna
out
tell you, Mount
with the
Pleasant-
how they got $4.5 million.
Because I owned a
spent.
piece of property on Mount Pleasant, and there was some water bills on there. And water, you pay for water and sewer in Mount Pleasant, and a lot of that goes to the city. I'm going to tell you, man, it's
Yeah.
expensive out there. I would be questioning out in Mount Pleasant, what are you guys doing with our money? Or if you're going to blow it,
Yeah.
at least give me a better rate.
do something good with it.
I'll take you out to dinner.
What a life.
Yeah. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this morning. We hope you had a really great St. Patrick's Day, and it's just what is it? A week from? Is it a week from tomorrow already that the election is?
No, 2 weeks.
2 weeks from tomorrow. You got a little bit of time.
April
yet, but
3rd.
yeah. Start studying the candidates. I mean, start studying the candidates. Don't listen to somebody that's coming knocking at your door, because we know that there are people coming
boy,
from
there
out of
are.
town
Yeah.
supporting one particular party, which is okay. But I mean, this is a nonpartisan election, so it shouldn't be parties involved. So do your studying. We're going to be doing some studying, and we're going to bring you some information that is unbiased and real for you to consider before you go and vote. So, until next time, thank you for being here. Be sure and refer us to your friends, like us on Facebook and YouTube or whatever, and share us with other people. And we'll see you in a week. Thank you.